Anna. I am a freshman, and I am pursuing a major in elementary education and guidance counseling.
My name is Parker. I'm also a freshman, and I'm pursuing kinesiology.
I'm Anna. I'm a freshman, and I'm pursuing prenatal hygiene.
My name is Athen. I'm a senior in mechanical engineering.
And today, we would like to talk to you about the fact that climate change could be irreversible by the year 2030, according to the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC. So, the history of climate change was first discovered within the paleoclimate changes and with the identifying of greenhouse gas effects in the 19th century. With the freshwater and saltwater changes, these are the resources that form the foundations that will affect principles of our human life, and with the saltwater changes and rising, it could affect the landmarks that we live on. So these are some examples of how climate change will affect you. So therefore, we believe that the United States should do more for the policies of climate change. Today we want to talk about the root causes of climate change, what we are currently doing for climate change, and what we should do for climate change.
Okay, so before we begin to talk about what the United States needs to do to prevent climate change, we first need to understand what the climate change problem actually is. So climate can be defined as a particular set of weather conditions for a specific area, and therefore climate change can just be defined as the change in these weather conditions, and this can be applied at a regional or global level. Now, Earth's climate changes naturally with hot and cold periods over time, and this is usually a cyclic process, so it'll be hot for a while, cold for a while, hot for a while again, and that process just repeats. Now, the current trend that we are observing is global warming, which is the heating of Earth's atmosphere by trapping heat from the sun with greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, water vapor, and methane. The climate change problem we face today isn't the raw temperature increase to date, but rather the rate at which it is increasing. According to NASA's website updated in 2019, the current warming trend is extremely likely to be the result of human activity since the mid-20th century, and it is proceeding at a rate that is unprecedented over decades to millennia. The primary human contribution to this trend is the production of CO2 by burning fossil fuels such as coal and oil. An example of this is shown in the combustion analysis for octane. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the equation there, you have your reactants, which is octane, C8H18, and then your air model, which is oxygen, nitrogen. And on the right side, you have your products. This is just what is created after combustion. So as you can see, you have carbon dioxide, among water vapor, and nitrogen. And this process is one that happens 24/7, millions and millions of times a day in cars, trucks, motorcycles, anything that consumes gasoline produces these products. Now, octane is a hydrocarbon, which basically just means that it is made up of carbon and hydrogen. And so compounds similar to this one also produce these same three core products. So you may have carbon monoxide in there and sulfuric oxide, but it just kind of depends on the makeup of the fuel you're using. Now, the main goal of these hydrocarbons is to produce electricity from combustion. So anytime you are using power at your home, work, school, anywhere else, it is likely a result of the combustion of a hydrocarbon, which produces carbon dioxide. The other examples of hydrocarbons include propane, methane, octane, and coal. So coal is usually what we use to generate electricity. Now, the increased production of carbon dioxide began around the Industrial Revolution and has skyrocketed since then. This graph obtained from NASA's website illustrates the carbon dioxide levels in Earth's atmosphere throughout its history. So as you can see, you have like rising and falling periods of these carbon dioxide levels, and this likely corresponds to the hot and cold periods that we discussed earlier. And around that 1950 level is the time of the Industrial Revolution. Of course, it's earlier than that, but the industrial age is very small on this graph because the scale is so large. And as you can see, it's basically just a vertical line which indicates a dramatic increase in these carbon dioxide levels. Now, carbon dioxide isn't the only factor of climate change, but scientists do agree that it is the most influential one. A few examples of climate change visible today are the global temperature rise, shrinking ice sheets, more extreme weather, and the sea level rise. And NASA also discusses some future effects should these climate change trends continue, and these include the increased global temperature rise, longer droughts and heat waves, stronger, more intense hurricanes, and continued sea level rise. So now that I've talked a little bit about what the climate change problem actually is, Anna will talk about what the United States is currently doing to prevent it.
So climate change is affecting every country and every continent. And so I'm going to talk to you about what the United States is doing to prevent climate change. So the United States has done stuff for over like 20 years, but recently in the Trump administration, they have opposed stuff that his previous predecessor has done, which was Mr. Obama. But the United States is changing rapidly, and they're helping with the state and federal. So there's a group that's the United States Climate Alliance, which is 24 states. So they were founded in June 1st, 2017, and they have taken 7 actions to help with climate change. So according to the United Nations Foundation website, they established goals to reduce greenhouse gases. They've signed legislation to ramp up renewable energy. They push for better energy efficiency. They have set policies. They have done regulations to cut harmful air pollutants. They have created new financial opportunities for clean air, and they have developed special tools and resources to help with address the climate change. So first, the United States established in 1955 the Air Pollution Control Act, which pretty much is the government gave funds so they can do research on air pollutant. And then after that, there was the Clean Air Act, which was the first major environmental act in the United States. And it is designed to control the air pollution on a national level. So there is the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, and it's required to regulate emissions. So that means, like in a small way, it means that they set limits on how much can be in the air at one time. So in this picture, each of these, the EPA has set regulations on how much like companies can put out into the air at one time. It's been very successful over the past couple of years because one way is because according to EPA.gov, there has been more than 200,000 premature deaths prevented and 7,000 cases of chronic bronchitis were avoided because of these limits that they set. Now that I've talked a little about what the United States has done to prevent climate change, I'm going to hand it over to Parker and he's going to tell you what we can do better.
Countries all over the world have done projects to improve their climate and to reduce pollution in their air. There are countless opportunities that the U.S. can put forth to improve our climate. One of the biggest changes, though, is we need to push the Going Green movement. Emissions in our atmosphere have done massive damage from the burning of fossil fuels. As the Washington Post said in 2018, the government needs to push towards a new source of energy. This is clean energy, and these can include solar and wind. They have done it in the past. They have pushed towards these energies in the past, but the progress is too slow for how far we need to go to it, so it needs to go a lot further. The government needs to support and collaborate with companies to improve their products and to make our world a healthier place. These companies include Tesla, Solar Window Technologies, and Berge Power. Tesla creates electric vehicles and other clean sources of energy towards things that we use for fossil fuels. Solar Window Technologies create normal window panes like those over there, but they act as solar panels. And Berge Power is creating consumer level wind turbines that is used for power. These companies can make a huge impact on improving the use of clean energy. Another way that we can go is the adaptation side of things. Climate change, when humans inhabit the earth, will always happen, and making policy changes or use what we did and try to make the good out of it. So making policy or changes to move houses away from mudslide zones or flood zones can reduce what we have done to the environment and protect ourselves from what we have done, pretty much. And also from the flooding, we could build dams. If it creates a large enough amount of water, we could use dams to create more energy. And these can protect us from events and try to revert something that we have done as humans in adapting to things and to help us in a bigger way.
So therefore, now that we know the root causes of our issues with climate change, what we're currently trying, and then what we should do, we still believe that the United States should be more involved and intentional and impactful with working towards defeating climate change. So to wrap up some of the main points that we believe would be beneficial to gain from the speech is that, like Athens said, the current warming trend is extremely likely to be the result of human activity since the 20th century. There is a group, the U.S. Climate Analysis, and it is taking 7 actions to prevent climate change, like she talked about with the limits on pollution. And one of the biggest changes that we can make to push forth is the further use of going green. So now that we've educated you on it, we would like to produce a question of what can we do for it.